Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lalith Dhanush show. I'm super excited to present to you this wonderful series that I'm going to have with one of my mentors, Dr. Rajdeep Manwani. And I've decided to do a 5-episode podcast with him where I'm going to talk about some of the topics that he's an expert at. And today we are going to be talking about how an individual can reinvent themselves, because I believe reinventing yourself is almost a trait that you need for every single day of life, your career, your profession, wherever you go, you need it. Without that, man, I think life's hard. So, sir, welcome to my show. We've had you on the show before, and how are you? How have you reinvented yourself over the last few months?
Great, Lalith, and seeing your excitement, enthusiasm, it forces me to reinvent again and come back here. It's been an absolute pleasure, and let's see how we can both reinvent ourselves in this new podcast series, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sir, now tell me about this. Reinventing yourself sounds a little fancy for a lot of people, but what does it truly mean? Like, what is it? What does it stand for? What does the word stand for?
Every one of us is basically in a state of comfort zone or in a state of status quo where we don't want to come out of our comfort zone. And real growth happens only when you step out of your comfort zone. Had you not come out of your comfort zone and started your podcast, you wouldn't have grown as much you would have grown. If I wouldn't have come out of my comfort zone and stayed as a telephone operator, which I was in my earlier life, I wouldn't have grown. So it becomes very important that we actually step out of our comfort zone and go on to reinvent ourselves, because unless you are moving, because the world is dynamic, and if you are static, there is a mismatch between you and the world, and you will definitely not be able to go around with this world. So if we are going to keep ourselves abreast with the world, we have to actually reinvent ourselves, right?
True, sir.
So reinventing yourself doesn't mean that you do something just for the sake of doing it, but doing something which will make you grow. Because let's understand one thing. Suppose you have spoken on stage and I got scared and I didn't speak on stage. You are still better than me because you have an experience more than me. You are N+1 experiences and I am only N experiences. So that's why it becomes very, very necessary to reinvent yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a part of everybody's life, right? And the people who kind of stop reinventing themselves have stopped growing and have stopped seeing the better things in life. So before I get to your story and ask you a few insights into that, I want to know, is there any example of an individual or a character that you've read about or you've met who kind of reinvented themselves in a way that nobody else has done and could have inspired you also in your own journey?
Of course. My own college mate Rahul Dravid, when I was there in college, and Rahul Dravid was not yet picked for the Indian cricket team at that particular point of time. He was playing for the Ranji Trophy cricket team. He was an amazing inspiration. I'm going to take a little time and talk about him. One day, me and my friends, my seniors were standing and my juniors were standing outside the class, and Rahul Dravid came into college. It was somewhere in the month of March. In those days, we had exams every year. We didn't have the semester system. And when he came into college, he was wearing a cap. He had his backpack. But something strange about him that day was he was wearing his gloves. And we friends were a little perplexed, and we started talking. Somebody said, "Oh my God, this fellow wants to show off that he's playing for the Karnataka Ranji team." Somebody said, no, he wants to impress Anupama. Anupama was the most beautiful girl in his class, correct? So everybody started talking that way, but he didn't matter. He went into class, he sat down there, and the teacher came in, and it was March, it was pretty warm, and the teacher started teaching the accounting class, and she started dictating the notes, and everybody thought that Rahul will remove his gloves and he'll start writing. But to the amazement of everybody, he removed his pen, he removed his pencil, he drew the lines, and everything with his gloves on, and everybody in the class was sniggering, smiling, wondering, what is this guy up to? He's not at all bothered about anybody. Anyway, the class went on for 1 hour and he did not remove his gloves, and after the class, one of the friends of his, Adarsh, went up to him and said, Rahul, why are you wearing your gloves? Rahul said, I'm wearing my gloves because around 2 matches which I played earlier in this Ranji Trophy, the bowler bowled the ball and I went to defend it, and the gloves made a swish sound because they are a little old, they are a little sagging, and the wicketkeeper caught it and he appealed for a caught behind and they gave me out. So I said, I cannot go on with these gloves forever. So I've bought a new set of gloves. But these new set of gloves have to fit into my hand. They have to feel comfortable. I have to sweat into those gloves. So, and my next Ranji Trophy match is after 2 days. So I'm wearing these gloves for the next 48 hours. I'm not going to remove it when I'm in college, when I'm at home, when I'm eating. I'm going to wear these gloves even when I'm sleeping, so that I feel comfortable with these gloves, so that I can perform well for the next match. The next match he scored a big 100. He went on to score another big 100 in the next few Ranji matches, and he was selected for the Indian cricket team which went to Lords in England that year. And we all know Ganguly and Rahul Dravid made their debut, and Ganguly scored a century in the first test match he played and Rahul scored 94, and the rest, as they say, is history. He scored over 7,000 runs. But look at the ability to reinvent yourself. The problem was that my gloves are loose. My gloves are not fitting me properly, and because of that, he didn't complain that, oh my God, the wicket keeper is blind, he couldn't see and didn't nick. He didn't complain that the umpires are useless, they gave me out even without any nicking. But he said to himself, where can I reinvent myself? And the only way of reinventing myself was change my gloves, get comfortable with it, and perform in the next match. And I thought that was a great inspiration. I thought I learnt my lesson of reinventing yourself from that day, that if you want to reinvent yourself, it's not the outside which matters, it's what within you which matters. You have to take the decision.
Sir, but I have a question here,
Yeah.
A very interesting question, because see, I believe reinventing yourself should happen to everybody.
Yes.
But Rahul Dravid clearly knew what he wanted in life. That is, he wanted to play for the Indian cricket team. He wanted to build a successful career out of that place. So he had a kind of purpose. Like Simon Sinek says, there's a why behind why he was reinventing himself. Because if he didn't, then he would not get through, right?
Absolutely.
Now, does that also mean that people who don't know their why actually find it much more difficult to reinvent themselves in a specific area or in a specific direction?
No, what is your why? Is it even in a daily life, you can reinvent yourself. Suppose you're getting up half an hour late and you're rushing to office and you're making a big mess of your life. Reinventing yourself is getting up at the right time. You're making a big mess with your relationships every day, you're fighting with your friends. Even there you can reinvent yourself. How can I make my life better? So reinventing yourself is not only about the bigger things in life. If you take care of the smaller things in life also, it's okay, right? It doesn't matter that you don't know your why, it's okay. We'll talk about that a little later. I'll tell you what you can do to find the why of your life, right? But what about the small things which are harassing you every day? What are the small things which harass you every day? What are the things which irritate you every day? Can't you reinvent yourself? The guy in front of you is going 10 kilometers slower and you get pumped up, you bang your steering wheel, you look around here, there, the traffic signal is going down from 55 to 1 and your blood pressure is going up from 100 to 150. Oh, there can't you reinvent yourself? Why don't you relax at that particular point of time? My area of improvement doesn't start with only the big things in life. It can also start with the small things in life. What are the small things which actually touch a chord with me and put me out? Where do I get angry?
Sir,
can I
here,
reinvent myself?
one interesting angle to this is, then are you also saying reinventing yourself could happen irrespective of a long-term plan or a short-term plan as well? Because I also feel reinventing yourself is a kind of a habit, right? Like it's a habit that has to build. So do you think somebody could do it immediately right now if required, or does it take time like a habit?
Immediately. Any transformation takes place immediately. Which was that book? There was a very famous book written by this lady called Mel Robbins. I don't know if you've heard of her. It's called the 5-second rule.
5-second rule, yes.
Correct or no?
Yes.
So where immediately, right? When you're getting up in the morning, just imagine a rocket going up and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and you jump out of the bed, right?
Yeah.
So why do you have to wait, right? The important malady of our generation is that we keep procrastination. Not now, we'll do it tomorrow, we'll do it day after tomorrow. You have to get up at 6:30, you'll put the alarm at 6:30 but get up at snooze, then another 10 minutes. For the 10 minutes of sleep, I read a research somewhere, you get up late 10 minutes. Because of that, either you sacrifice your breakfast, you eat it too quickly, or you're in a panic to get the bus or get to your transport or get to your college or get to your office. Your heartbeat goes up by at least 10 beats per minute more. 10 minutes getting up late can reduce 10 years of your life. Research. 10 minutes late can reduce. So for that 10 minutes means it's not that you're going to sleep for 2 hours more, right? For that 10 minutes you're wasting your life. So everything begins now, right?
Yes.
Your future begins today.
So now okay. Now I want to dive into another tangent, but yeah. I mean, I remember recently I was in Goa and I saw on a wall mural it says, "You snooze only if you booze." Right? I mean, but I feel you also snooze if you're.
You snooze even if you lose.
Yeah. True. And the problem is most of us do. And I remember watching this one video of Navjot Singh Sidhu, and he talks about how your biological clock could be just initiated just by you taking ownership of that moment and that responsibility. For example, he said, tomorrow if you have to wake up at 5 a.m., just strongly believe that you'll wake up at 5 a.m. and the chances are at least 9 out of 10 times you will.
I have a better idea.
Yeah.
Think you're going to pick up your friend at 6 o'clock in the airport and you have to get up at 4:30 to pick him up. If you get up 10 minutes late, he might not be there or you'll leave late. Imagine, Lalith, you have to pick up your best friend at 6 a.m. in the morning in the airport. Will you delay it? That whole night you'll keep looking at the clock. When do I get up? When do I get up? Right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Things are not so urgent for us, right, in life. Imagine if your life depended on this. Imagine if somebody said to you, if you don't get up by 5:30 in the next 10 minutes, your brains will be blown off, right?
Yeah, I think it's about priority, right? It's
Right.
what are you putting on priority? I really want this and how bad do you want it?
Yes.
And then I feel the law of manifestation automatically unfolds. Because you want it so badly, it'll work.
Yeah, absolutely. You want it badly and you have to prioritize things in life, right?
Yeah.
It's not...
True. So now tell me this. A lot of times many people feel dejected, lost, and they might not find the necessary needs to reinvent themselves, right? And I'm sure each one of us go through an experience like that somewhere, somehow. But how do you get back to the why should I reinvent myself? Let's say I'm a kid with a lot of problems, and I don't want to change, and I feel so uncomfortable not changing, and to change both ways. I'm lost. Why should I reinvent myself? I'm so defensive.
The question is, if you're depressed, if you're dejected, how is the present condition serving you? Ask yourself honestly. Any kid, any individual who asks himself honestly, I'm not feeling good in life, I'm not doing well in life, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling dejected. The question is not why I should not reinvent myself. The question you should ask is, if I reinvent myself and give myself a chance, what could be the results? Why don't you give yourself a chance? Let's try it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, might go back to your sorry, depressed self, right?
True.
But always there is a better option, right?
Yeah.
There is always a better option, right?
100%.
If you're staying in a hole all your life, why don't you give your chance to just come out of that hole and see the sunlight outside, right?
Yeah.
Just try, right? It's nothing harm, right? But if you're going to be so pessimistic that why should I reinvent myself, ask yourself the other question: why shouldn't I reinvent myself? And try. Let's come out. Let's do something and see what happens, right? Right. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. There is no harm in being where you are. If you are actually, I remember when I completed my MCom and I got the first rank in as a gold medal. And my then PhD guide, Dr. M.K. Sridhar had told me, Rajdeep, how are you feeling? And I said, I'm extremely happy. And I'm extremely happy that I've got the MCom gold medal. So he said, Rajdeep, the question is not from there to here. The question is from here to where. It's not enough if you just think that this is the end of your life and just the gold medal. The moment you start thinking that this is okay, that's the stop. That stops your progress. That's why they always say the enemy of great is not something bad. It's good.
It's
When
good,
you
yeah.
when you're happy where you are, uh, and I think so. There was a book also, very famous bestseller by Marshall Goldsmith. It says, "What has brought you here will not get you there."
Yeah,
Right?
and there's another quote that I am reminded of. I mean, the reason most people aren't successful is not because they aim too low and they, they aim too high and they missed. It's because they aim too low and they hit.
Yeah.
Right? And I also feel there's a very interesting dialogue that you said. And once you've accomplished your gold medal, the next thing is you have to understand fundamentally in life that you will have to move on, whether it's a good part or a bad part. You'll have to move on from that moment. And maybe now, if you've got the gold medal, can you also have the heart of gold to spread the same amount of knowledge, awareness, to become a teacher, which you had in your next phase, right? And this reminds me of the book Ray Dalio's Principles. I don't know if you had the chance to
No,
read that.
not heard. I've heard of the book, but I didn't read it yet.
Okay, but it's a beautiful book, you know.
Yeah.
And he talks about how once you achieve a peak of success, you'll always have a bigger peak. And recently, one of my students also asked me in class, sir, let's say I achieve everything that I want, like I have the dream startup, I have everything. What do I do next? I have all the money. I'm ultimately successful. And I said, listen, then you'll either have to completely go back into the forest and become like a Vanaprasa, or if not, you'll have to become a beginner, start another new company again.
Very true, very true, very true.
And that's it. And once you do that, I feel the ultimate form of reinventing yourself will become when you actually start helping other people reinvent themselves.
I remember a quote from Sachin Bansal when he had achieved a unicorn status for Flipkart. Sachin and Bunny Bansal. Now they sold it to Walmart, and they asked him, how does it feel being a unicorn and growing out of the startup? And he had smiled and he said, if I feel that I've become a unicorn, Flipkart will stop growing. I'm a perpetual startup. Every day I get up in the morning, if the turnover is 10 crores, we'll aim at 15. If it's 15, it's 20. If it's 20, it's 100, right? The moment an entrepreneur thinks he's arrived, the perpetual startup is the goal for any business, right? Because every day you have the challenges, every day you have to scale up, right?
Correct.
There is nobody who's, even today, the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos or whoever is it, Elon Musk, thinks that he's achieved enough in life, then he better shut down and sit down, right?
Yeah.
The point is that they are looking for something more. If Amazon is in 10 countries, they look at 20. If they look at 20, they'll look at 50, right?
If not,
and the
then
amount of employment, it's not what money does to you. What Narayan Murthy used to say, it's not what money does to you, but what it can do for so many other people, right?
Yeah, true. I like you said, you know, if not for 10 countries, 50 countries, if not like Elon Musk, then go to another planet, you know. Now he's building
Very true, very true.
rockets and spaceships to go to Mars and, you know, have life there. So I feel reinventing yourself has also been so amazing when it comes to the last 30 years of mankind, right? Like, think about it, like we've reinvented ourselves everywhere. Just coronavirus and the pandemic was how much did we have to reinvent ourselves there?
Amazing. You know that every viral, any cure for a virus or any sort of vaccination, the minimum period specified earlier was 20 years, 25 years. We've shrunk that time to 1.5, 2 years. That speaks about mankind.
Yes.
Chicken pox, smallpox, any virus, hepatitis B, all took around 15, 20 years to develop.
And killed a lot more people.
Yeah, and kill a lot more people. 15, 20 years. So everything humankind has, right from the time when you used ice boxes to keep your vegetables, to keep those ice trays, then you had those other refrigerators. Now you had CFC refrigerators, then they had caused environmental harm. You had HCFC refrigerators. Now if you see a refrigerator you'll be blown away by the curds, the curd making, the ice cream making, everything is found in a refrigerator. Just the same with cars, right?
Yeah,
You
true.
might be knowing this, Lalith. Means right from the time when we had those rickety cars, right? When I was small, it used to be so uncomfortable. To now you have your own central air condition, to have everything. So humankind is all about development, right?
Yeah, and I think as we And if anybody is interested to understand what is the pattern of reinventing, then I think it should start with examining oneself. See how you've moved on from a little child to where you are right now, and there is of course progress. And if you want to zoom out and see the bigger picture, then you could start seeing mankind and human race as to what it's done in the last 2000, 3000 years, and there's a pattern. So I mean, I think one of those other wonderful books that covers this is the book called Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, and also Homo Deus. And they talk about how today every single action, what we do, where does it come from, and how were we to where we are right now. And it's extremely fascinating. So Rajdeep sir, I want to ask you another thing. Now let's say in the modern world, some student of mine, like right now I have a few people watching right in front of me. If they ask, okay, how do I actually start reinventing myself? What are the steps that I take? Is there a formula or something like that you would recommend for these young kids or anybody who's watching?
See, two things. One is draw a line to your past. Most of us get caught in our past and we think that we are not able to reinvent yourself because of something which has happened in our past. And I think so that's the first thing which you do. The moment you start thinking that because this has happened in the past, it will not happen in the future, it's a very faulty belief system which shouldn't be done. I don't know if I've told you this story earlier, but what was Mahatma Gandhi before he actually became a Mahatma? He was an ordinary barrister, he couldn't speak properly, he was hesitating all the time, South Africa. He was there, and then one day when he was traveling on a train on a first class ticket, some guard threw him up on that platform in that Pietermaritzburg, and when he was sitting there, he thought of himself. He said, my God, if they can do this to me in a foreign country, how will they be treating my brothers and sisters in India? He drew a line to his past. A very poor speaker, a very diffident individual walked out of the station saying that my past will no longer remain my past, it will become my future. And he chalked a new future not only for himself but for the whole country, right?
True.
For you are the father. What was Mother Teresa? Absolutely a very, very ordinary sister, Sister Agnes, who used to teach in Loreto Convent in Kolkata. And when people used to ask her, will you become the principal of your school? She used to say, no, I'm happy as a teacher. But one day when she was traveling in a cycle rickshaw in Kolkata, she saw a man dying with flies and mosquitoes and eating him up in a ditch, and she said, my God, he's going to die. So she pulled him out of the ditch, took him the cycle rickshaw, took him to the school, took him to the medical room, and she called another sister and they started cleaning him. And when they started cleaning him, they realized that he's not going to live. And Mother Teresa, with a lot of anguish, looked at her friend and she said, it didn't make a difference, did it? Simply meaning that it didn't make a difference, anyway he's going to die. But before her friend could answer, she heard this man whisper something. And when she went close, that man said in Bengali, which I'm translating in English, he said, sister, it made a big difference. First I was dying as a nobody in the ditches of Kolkata. Now I'm dying as somebody in the hands of an angel. And he closed his eyes and he died. And after that, she cried that whole night. She sent the body for cremation. She went the next day with her resignation letter in her hand to the principal, and the principal asked her, Sister Agnes, what are you going to do? You're going to resign? She said, yes. She said, why? She said, there are thousands of organizations which give dignity to people who live. There is not one organization which gives dignity to people who die. I will start one such organization. So the principal asked her, do you have the money? She said, no. Do you have the resources? No. Do you have the people to help you? She said, no. Then how are you going to do it? She said, I have love in my heart and I have faith in the Lord. And she walked out with 24 rupees in her purse. Today, missionaries of charities in over 100 countries. It feeds around 48 lakh people every day. All because somebody drew a line to their past. So the first thing is draw a line to your past. And then I'll tell you the next stage when you ask me the next question. Yeah.
Yeah. So go on. That's what I was getting to, right? Like we got two examples. What's the second part of it? Like apart from moving away from your past and doing
okay, I'll just give you one more example of my past because it relates to my own life. Two things. Actually, okay, let me tell you this example because, when I started applying for college, I was very, very resentful, because every college was rejecting me, although I got a gold medal in my MCom, and I was feeling very, very upset. And with every rejection, 3, 4, I was getting more and more bitter. I was telling, oh my God, how are these people? They're discriminating against a person who's visually impaired. This is not great. And then, one day I was listening to a radio program. This was there's a radio channel called Vivid Bharati, which it's a Hindi channel. In those days it used to play, and it had a program called Jigyasa, which is basically a general knowledge program. And the person on the radio, when he came on air, he said, do you know that nobody dies of a snake bite? And if you want to know more, listen to the commercial break and come back. These RJs, they do that.
Yeah.
So I said, wonderful. How does it? Nobody dies of a snake bite. Everybody dies. So many people I've heard died of a cobra bite or something like that. When he came back, he said, do you know nobody dies of a snake bite? The bite of the snake doesn't kill a person, but because the venom circulates in the blood again and again, it coagulates the blood and you die. If the poison was kept at the same place where the snake has bitten you, you would never die. And you know what? I had a great realization that day. I'm not dying because those people are rejecting me. I'm dying because I'm reliving those moments of them rejecting me again and again. And that night I went to my puja room and I cried and I said, I don't want this bitterness in my heart again. And the next day I came out, I had reinvented myself. So the moment we cut ourselves from the past, you have a new energy of yourself which pushes you further in life, right?
True. And I think it's very simple if you have to break it down into analogy. Like our past is matter. It's content that is there in our brains, and it's just like a USB, right? If you want to put a new movie or a new song or anything into it, you got to empty it, you got to delete it, and you got to delete and create space, because we think we have infinite space, but we have infinite possibility, but with finite space. So I feel people should actually empty out what they have. And that's why unlearning is very important in life. A lot of people just think learning is important, and I see that with my students itself. Once they graduate, the last thing they'll ever look at is books, the last thing they'll ever listen to on YouTube channels are podcasts and informative content, but they will listen to something funny, stupid and hilarious. Simply because they want something light and not heavy. And I mean, everybody requires variety, but you have to empty all the garbage which you think was important, and that can come in the form of education. So yeah, I mean, definitely do agree to what you have to say. So what do you think about the next step apart from the past? Like moving away from your past, what's the next?
So once you move yourself from the past, the second is take small steps to reach your particular goal, or at least whatever you have decided to do, right?
Make it easy.
It may not be, break it down into small bits and do it, right? Because generally, let me tell you this, most of us don't change and find that reinventing yourself and changing is difficult because of a small mental dilemma.
Yeah.
We stand on desire and we look at reality. But the whole point is we should stand at reality and look at desire. So see, let's say you want to reduce your weight. You look at that most thin, slim, zero-figure person and say, oh my God, I am so fat, how will I become, I want to become like that, I want to become like that zero figure, and she's so slim, she's so beautiful. And then, oh, I'm poor me, I'm so fat, how will I change? You're standing on desire and looking at reality. Stand at reality. What am I now? I'm 10 kgs overweight. What is my desire? I have to become zero figure. So can I lose 1 kg a month, 30 grams per day? Okay, 30 grams per day, is it possible? Absolutely possible, right? Yeah. The problem in life is we always do this mistake. We stand on desire and look at reality. We never stand on reality and look at desire. So if you stand on your reality, okay, where do I have to go? Where am I now? Where am I now is the first step. I'm not good at my studies. I have to achieve 80%, I'm scoring 60%. So what do I do to make it 65? What do I do to make it 70? But if you look, oh, that fellow's got 90% and look at me, poor me, 60%, I will not get into a college, you're in trouble. Because you're creating a mountain of expectations for yourself. So the second step is look at your reality and then focus on your desire. Don't stand on desire and look at
Reality. Yeah.
reality.
I think that's a great point, and it also resonates with with one of the most famous books, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Right? He says if you want to if you want to convert a habit to a permanent habit, then don't try throwing big, large, fat goals at it. Instead, keep the goal super achievable, minimum, and with the least amount of effort possible. And that way you can actually do it. And I actually incorporated this in my life. And it actually, for the first time, especially with physical exercise, it's working. Recently, Deepika Padukone in an interview said, I go to the gym 3 times in a week. Now think about it, sir. Like, I wanted to go 7 days in a week. Like all 7 days I wanted to be at the gym, and I reduced 10-15 kilos in 4 months. But I immediately stopped going to the gym because I had sacrificed so much. But Deepika Padukone had to maintain her, size, had to maintain her shape, and that's her, profession. And she clearly knew the hack. It was about going 3 days in a week and then doing it for 4 years rather than going for 4 months straight and not doing it for the rest of the 4 years. I think that's the secret. What do you think?
Very true, very true. In fact, two examples. First, these two are examples from my own life. When I came to Bangalore, I came from Nasik, Devlali Nasik to Bangalore, and I was in third standard, and I was put in I had come from a Hindi medium. I could speak only Hindi. When I came to Bangalore, and I was put in a convent school in your Bishkot Boys School, and everybody used to tease me, HMT, 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 that is Hindi medium type, correct? Now also they call me HMT, half mote tale, but that's a different matter, but whatever it is. But I couldn't speak English, so I used to go to my cousin's sister, and I used to tell her to teach me one new word of English. So I used to learn one word of English every day and apply it in a sentence. That's all. One word of English. And the other thing was I could see at that time, so I used to read some book, and we had Doordarshan at that time and All India Radio. So try and imitate those newscasters, and there used to be Swasini Haidar, and I used to speak the way in which they used to try and build that. But just by learning one word every day, applying it in sentences, reading small English stories every day loudly, trying and imitating newscasters, in a matter of around 3-4 years, I was representing my school in the inter-school debate competitions. So what happens is, one word a day, whether it rains, whether it snows, one word a day, applying it in sentences can make such a big difference to your life.
Correct.
So it's just the small things. If you think long term, why don't you start small, right? Another example, when I started my teaching career, I wasn't very great at teaching. I'd got the MCom gold medal, but I wasn't. What makes you a great academician doesn't make you a great teacher. I might have got the MCom gold medal, but when I started teaching in class, the first few months, I used to teach business studies, and the students used to say, "So boring, sir, leave it, we'll study it on our own." And I used to feel very upset. I'm not teaching properly. Then, at that particular point of time, I had read this book called Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, Jack Canfield.
Yeah. So this Chicken Soup for the Soul, what was interesting was not only the book. What was interesting was there was an interview with Jack Canfield, which I had heard on this. In those days, I used to listen to radio. No? So shortwave, there was this interview with him, and in those days, he had sold around 4 lakh or 6 lakh copies within a matter of 6 or 7 months. So the interviewer, how did you make Chicken Soup for the Soul such a huge phenomenon? And I also was a little puzzled, because we had so many Indian books, Panchantantra, Jataka Tales, so many Vikram Betal, and they had not become successes. So how did this become? And Jack Canfield said, I followed the rule of 3. So they asked him, what did you follow? What's the rule of 3? He said the rule of 3 is a Native American proverb which says that if you strike a tree every day 3 times, and you sharpen your axe every day in the night, within 6 months, you can make the tallest, strongest tree in the world fall down. And they said even General Sherman is supposed to be the tallest tree in the world. He said even General Sherman. So they asked him, what does that have to do with your success, Mr. Canfield? He said, I follow the rule of 3 in marketing my book. Every day I did 3 things. I did a road show. I went and did a reading in the prison. I went and distributed books in a particular library. The second day I went and did a publicity campaign on radio. I did 3 things every day to market my book, and within 3 or 4 months my book had become a astounding success. And I said, wow, if he can do it, I can do it. I didn't do the rule of 3, I did the rule of 1. I'd forgotten what I'd done when I was young, when I'd learned speaking English. But I went and I said, I'll do one thing to become a better teacher every day. I remember the first day I went to my librarian and I asked her to read some interesting anecdotes on management. There was a book by Pramod Batra, Management Anecdotes. The second day I went for a little bit of voice training. My voice wasn't as good as it was in those days. I had a very slow.
What age were you, sir, that time?
Around 24, 25.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't have a great voice, and many students used to record my voice, and if they wanted to sleep without any side effects, they used to play my voice and they used to fall asleep. But that was different. And at that particular point of time, I went to a dramatist called Orko Mukherjee. He taught me how to modulate my voice. He used to put a pencil on my mouth and make me scream. He used to make me do pranayam. The best voice comes from the belly. And he taught me that. Like that. Third day, I went and did some research writing. Every day, one thing I did to become a better teacher. After 6 months, my class strength had gone from 25% to 50%. After around 1 year, I had 75-80% students coming to my class. After 1.5 2 years, people used to come, sir, are you teaching our class? Now, what did I do? Nothing. One small thing every day and following it with an unflinching commitment. And that changed my life. So, reinventing yourself isn't a great rocket science. Cut yourself from the past, do small things, trudge every day, stand on your reality and look at desire. Don't stand on desire and look at your reality, and you'll see magic happens in your life.
So, sir, I mean, you've just given us a 2-step formula. People usually give a 8-step, 10-step formula. But I just feel, do you think this is more than enough for anybody to just start reinventing themselves?
Anything in life is very simple, but the point is that human mind always wants to complicate things. We have this great tendency. If I tell you an 8-step formula and write a book on it, it will be a great success. If I tell you a 2-step formula, breathe from your belly and go it out, no, actually it's not going to work. But when Baba Ramdev tells you take your stomach out and churn it around, then you feel, oh my God, it's a great thing, right? Correct?
Yeah.
So anything which is actually in life, most of our life is so simple, that's why we miss it. In fact, the simplicity of life makes life the most complicated. Anything which is complicated is food for the mind, right?
So, one last thing that's been hitting me, like we've spoken a lot about how you've reinvented yourself throughout the journey, but can you go to the lowest lows of your life, like at any point of time, where you could actually push beyond what people could think you were capable of and reinvent yourself? You just gave me the example of a teacher. Anything else, be it in personal life or be it in one of the most toughest situations across anything in your life?
Tough situation, let me tell you, I had may not be as tough as it sounds, but the greatest dilemma was when I lost my eyesight in my 8th and then in 10th, what happened was I had to make a choice whether to take up commerce or arts, because in those days, in fact, every person who was visually impaired had never taken up commerce or science after the 10th. You do your pre-university or your 11th and 12th only in arts.
Why,
because it was considered that a visually impaired person will not be able to do maths, statistics, accounts. How will he know what has to be debited, what has to be credited, numbers, right? So in those days there was a big barrier, and I was very, very confused. I was wondering, because I had taken up economics and commerce in my 10th standard in ICSE as my 6th subject. We had 5 subjects and the 6th subject, and I loved the subject. So I said, I want to take up commerce, but and I was in a dilemma, and everybody told, no, don't take it up, take up arts, you become a music teacher, how will you do English, do something like that, but don't take up commerce. And at that time I had gone to a person who ran an NGO called Mr. Babu Rangraj. He was running an organization called Abilities, and I asked him, sir, I want to take up commerce, should I take it up? And he was an English teacher, and he, in a very cryptic way, he told me, Rajdeep, somebody is waiting for you to cross the hurdle so that their race can begin. And I said, what do you mean by this? I went home and I thought of it, and then it struck me. Somebody is waiting for me to take up commerce so that they can also take up commerce at a later point of time. And you know what I did? I convinced my father to take up the commerce form, and it was very traumatic. Everybody is telling, no, you can't do it. How will you write down? How will you do accounts? And we had to take up ABEM, ABES, MSBA, what is that, math, stats, business studies account. It was really, so I went, and luckily I got very good percentage in my 10th standard. I got the highest marks in both Bishop Cotton boys and girls. So I convinced Father Walter Andrade, who was the principal of St. Joseph's PU College, degree college. Now it's separated. He told me, I'm giving you a chance, but I've never given a chance to a person who's visually impaired. And I took up that challenge, and I'm so happy I did that, because today the preferred mode of stream for most visually impaired kids across the country is commerce. If I hadn't taken up that, nobody would have got the confidence. When you take that first step, we all know, right? When Roger Bannister ran the mile under 4 minutes, nobody had run it for the past 150 years, in 1953. But once he did it, in the next 2 years, 17 other people did it.
Yeah.
So the barrier had to be broken mentally. So sometimes when you reinvent yourself, you're not only doing it for yourself, you're proving to be an inspiration or a model for somebody.
True. And you just don't lead the way, you become the way. Right? And a lot of people start looking at you from a perspective of possibility, rather than just looking at, do I get the same coach? Do I get the same facilities? But I think it opens a lot of doors for bigger thinking and bigger aspirational goals to be met.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm reminded of when Leander Pace won the junior Wimbledon for the first time. As we are telling bigger aspirations, we can go, it just struck my mind. So when he went to the center court of Wimbledon, and he went around an hour or an hour and a half earlier, and he expected his coach to throw him down a few tennis balls and take some shots, and his coach said, go and buy the Wimbledon souvenir and come. So he said, coach, now? He said, yeah, go at it. He said, it's the end, go. He ran for 10 minutes. He went to the edge of the Wimbledon court and he got the souvenir and came back, and he said, now should we start practicing? So his coach said, no, start going through that Wimbledon souvenir. So he said, coach, I have to practice. He said, just do what I'm trying to tell you. He went through the Wimbledon souvenir, he went through 10 pages and said, okay, it's over, I've gone through 10 pages. He said, no, go through the entire thing. And he was cursing his coach. And for the next 50 pages, he went through it, and there was almost time now for the match to start. And he said, I have not practiced, coach. You asked me to go through the Wimbledon souvenir. What did you want me to know? He said, in this souvenir, did you find the name of anybody who's the runner-up? He said, no. He said, that's what's going to make the difference. Do you want to be in the souvenir next year, or do you want to be a part of history? And Leander said, I was so inspired by what my coach said that day, that I went to the court, all the time ringing in my mind, I want to be in the souvenir in the next year. So sometimes very unconventional techniques make you think those bigger aspirations in.
Yeah, true. I mean, it is the way, isn't it? Like, there's no other way to it. So guys, if this episode inspired you to reinvent yourself, then I suggest you hit the subscribe button, and also look forward to the next 4 episodes that I'm going to shoot with my mentor, Dr. Rajdeep Manwani. Thank you so much, sir, for coming here, and it's been a pleasure, like always, that I talk to you, and I'm sure we can give them more golden nuggets in the times to come.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Lalith, for having me here. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been